Welcome everyone, this is Frank DeMore with the Last Chronicles of Planet Earth, bringing you the news that connects to Bible prophecy. And it is my pleasure to invite you to go to my prophecy site if you're at my YouTube channel, and you'll get a lot more than just the YouTube videos. You'll get other news as well there. So let me get right into the news for today. Excuse me. I'd like to, if I may, give you some information about the Psalm 83. Now, Psalm 83, as you see here, now this is a part of Psalm 83. There's more verses to it, and I'll explain as I go through this. But Psalm 83, in short, is a psalm. It's a prophecy about a war that has not yet been fulfilled yet. And of course, we know, as you'll see as I scroll here, I've given you the names of the people who are going to be involved in this war against Israel. And you'll see those names if you're new to prophecy and the first time to my site. And I thank God for all the people that are finding the site and the YouTube channel. But to the left are 1 through 10 are the list of the nations of the people that will be attacking Israel, Jerusalem, trying to wipe out the Israelis. And on the right side, you'll see the modern day names. And so it makes it very, very plain so that you don't have to try to figure out who they are. And it's very, very simple. And so in short, all of these nations, we are told in the Old Testament Psalm, this prophecy about this war that hasn't been fulfilled yet, that they are going to come together and counsel themselves together to try to eliminate the nation of Israel. So, now knowing that, let us read. It says, verse 1 from Psalm 83, "Keep not thou silence, O God, hold not thy peace, and be not still, O God. For lo, thine enemies make a tumult, and they that hate thee have lifted up their head. And they have taken crafty counsel against thy people." Now, when they're talking about this crafty counsel here, they're coming to devise some kind of plan. And the people that they're talking about is Israel. So they're coming together, these Arab nations that border around Israel, they're coming together, and they're going to make a plan to say, we got to do this, or whatever it is, to get rid of Israel, to wipe her out. Now, it says, "And consulted against thy hidden ones. They have said, come and let us cut them off from being a nation." So in other words, destroy them. This is essentially what it's saying. And again, in reference to the nation Israel. And of course, we know if you've been following the news, or at least if you came to my website, I've been posting all the news where I actually show you the reports and videos coming from the Middle East where they're telling us. They're saying out loud to everyone, we want to destroy the nation of Israel. So they're saying essentially the same exact thing that the Lord has shown us in his prophecies. So going on, it says that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. So there you go. Very plainly, they're telling you, wipe them out. Wipe them out. Get rid of them. This is what it's saying. "For they have consulted together with one consent. They are confederate against thee." So they came together, they formulated some kind of plan to get rid of Israel. They consulted about doing this together, and we know that they're a confederate against thee, which means that there's a group of nations, a confederation of nations, if you will, that are coming against Israel in the last days. And obviously, when you look at the map, you'll see exactly who they are. So there's no question about it. And according into the news, we've been watching so much news showing us that these are the last days, and that this Psalm war is going to be fulfilled soon because of what the nations are doing to Israel right now. We see the road is being set to fulfill this prophecy. Now, this is what I'm going to show you here I just learned myself. It's very, very interesting. And what I'm going to do is I need to show you an article about the Psalm 83 war. And this when I saw this, it blew my mind. Now I'm going to bring you to the article, and you'll see it here. It says, Ancient Book of Psalms found in the Irish bog. This worker uncovers approximately 20-page book dated to the years 800 to 1000. Now get this. This came from the Associated Press. And of course, I'm going to have the link for you. Make it very easy for you. This is a picture of this book here. It says the Irish archaeologist Thursday heralded discovery of an ancient book of Psalms by the construction worker who spotted something while driving a shovel with his backhoe into a bog. Now, the approximately 20-page book has been dated to the years 800 through 1000. Trinity College manuscripts expert Bernard Meehan said it was the first discovery of an Irish early medieval document in 2 centuries. This is really a miracle find, said Paul Wallace, director of the National Museum in Ireland, which has the book stored in refrigeration and facing years of pain stalking analysis before being put on public display. There's 2 sets of odds that make this discovery really way out. First of all, it's unlikely that something this fragile could survive and buried in a bog at all. And then for it to be unearthed and spotted before it was destroyed is incredibly more amazing. And he said an engineer was digging up bogland last week to create commercial potting soil somewhere in Ireland's Midlands when, just beyond the bucket of his bulldozer, he spotted something. Wallace would not specify where the book was found because the team of archaeologists is still exploring the site. It says the owner of the bog has had dealings with us in the past and is very much in favor of the archaeological discovery and reporting it, Wallace said. And crucially, he said that the bog owner covered up the book with damp soil. It had been left exposed overnight, he said. It could have dried out and just vanished or blown away. So in other words, what they're saying is there's really very miraculous signs going on in the find of this book. It says the book was found open. Get this now, please listen to this. The book was open to a page describing in Latin script Psalm 83, in which God hears complaints of other nations attempting to wipe out the name of Israel. Now, Wallace says several experts spent Tuesday analyzing only that page, the number of the letters on each line, lines on each page, size page, and the book's binding and cover, which is described as a leather volume, very thick wallet in appearance. And it goes on to say that they're going to be studying the book for months and months. But here you go. It's open to the very page. I mean, I look at this and I'm thinking, God is revealing things to us so fast in these last days that it used to be, for me at least, in my ministry, it used to be pretty easy to be able to post because there wasn't much happening. But in the last 5 years, I'm inundated. And it's very, very difficult for me to post so much because we see so many things happening that are fulfillment of Bible prophecy. And I really believe that God is showing us things. He's getting us ready to go through these things, at least those that do not know the Lord yet will have to go through these things. But the Psalm 83 war is one of the wars that we could see as the church is still here on earth. And so I just found it amazingly, and I believe that the Lord did this on purpose, that book was open identically to the page of Psalm 83. Now, what I've done for you is that there's a CNN report that I want to play for you. It talks about the finding of this book, this Psalm 83. So I'd like to play that for you.
It will take years of painstaking work to document and preserve this book, but eventually it will go on public display. Now, here's the kicker. The book, about 20 pages of Latin script, was allegedly found open to Psalm 83. Now, if you're a scholar, as you know, Psalm 83, God hears complaints that other nations are plotting to wipe out the name of Israel. Well, that's precisely the kind of news nugget that would get the attention of my next guest, a seemingly random event with an eerie coincidence to reality. Jerry Jeffkins is in New York. Now, along with Tim LaHaye, he co-authored the widely popular Left Behind series. Only 63 million books sold, by the way. Also joining me, Joel Rosenberg in Washington. He's the author of The Copper Scroll, the latest of several apocalyptic novels. So, gentlemen, from books to blogs to the back pews, the buzz is all about the end times. What do you think of the Book of Psalms? Is this going to be the next thing that both of you will write about?
Jerry, go ahead.
I'm getting smiles from both. All right, Jerry, will this be your next book?
It's an amazing news story. I hadn't heard it.
Really? Okay, this is news to you then.
Yeah, in some ways it's not terribly surprising. I mean, I think God finds ways of communicating with us, and he does that through his word. This guy, Jerry.
So there you have it. The article is there. They're reported on this find, and they even mention in there the CNN report that is open to that very page, and it's talking about the end times. And it is a mind blower to me, because I just see the lovingness of the Lord showing us these things. And if you've been following the news, you've been privy to all of the latest finds in Israel, that they're finding new artifacts, new books, and so forth, showing us that not only is the Bible true, but pointing that we are definitely in these last days. And so let's move on. I wanted to show you this because this was amazing, and I believe that the Lord is showing us. I could be wrong, but I believe that the Lord is showing us that this Psalm 83 war is about to commence. Now, again, here's that photo that you'll find not only on my website, but this photo is in my book. In one of the chapters that I posted about the attack on Israel. You can download this book today for free, read all that information for free. So we know now what Psalm 83 said. We know that they're going to come together, counsel themselves together. And the remaining verses, it'll show you the exact names of those nations. And instead of putting it there and try to explain it in the time that I have here, I just put it up here, and you'll be able to read exactly who those people are that are going to be attacking Israel very, very shortly. Now, we know when we take a look at the Psalm 83 war, we also need to take a look at what the Lord showed us by Paul the Apostle in 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verses 3 and 4, where he says this: For when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. But ye, brethren, are not in darkness, that day should overtake you as a thief. In other words, the Christians are going to understand. The people who have the word of the Lord, the knowledge, the wisdom that God gives to us by his word, we will understand what is about to happen. And of course, if you're one of those Christians who have been reading and studying and abiding in the Lord, you're going to know. You're going to know what the signs are. You're going to be able to see those signs. You're going to be able to recognize those signs. And above all, it would inspire you to begin to get ready to meet the Lord to go home. at the rapture of the church. And then we know that all hell's going to break loose. The rapture takes place, and then the 7-year tribulation begins. But we do know from this particular scripture that Israel will be calling for peace and safety, and we know that sudden destruction will come. And obviously, what is sudden destruction? Well, we know that it's war. War is coming. And so we know that Israel's been calling for peace and safety. We know that it has been stalled. They've been trying to get the peace process going again, and as the years pass, all it does is it gets worse. It doesn't get better. Now, let me bring you to the headline here, and I'll tie all this in. Netanyahu forming war government. Okay, now keep in mind what Paul said. You know, they're talking peace and safety, then sudden destruction was going to come. But let us go now to this article, and you'll see that this article comes from the Ynet News, and it was on the 9th of May. It says, Netanyahu forming world or war government. It says, newspapers across the Arab world could not ignore Israel's political drama and the declaration of a unity government on Tuesday. Benjamin Netanyahu and Saul Mofaz were described as conveying warmongers and corrupt politicians as editorials declared war was looming. So they see war is coming. They see that not only is war coming, they've been preparing for it. So let me continue on with this article here a little bit more. It says, Netanyahu is forming a war government. Al-Quds and Al-Arabia's headline cried. No one knows what's going on through the mind of of Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on many regional issues these days. One can predict that this man is scheming and planning wars after murdering the peace process with the settlement policy in the occupied territories, the London-based paper said. So what they're saying here is that obviously Netanyahu is preparing for war. He's putting a council together for this coming war. And they're saying that he has demolished the peace process. Well, there's two parties in the peace process, and of course they didn't write this here, but they haven't been able to come together. The Arabs, they want Jerusalem back. Obviously, Benjamin Netanyahu doesn't want to give Jerusalem back, and so that was one of the most sticking problems in the peace process, which broke it down. And they're talking about the settlement policy that is, again, one of the issues, and they want the territory that was lost in the 1967 war to be given back to the PLO when they break it, or hopefully break up Israel into two and give the Palestinians their own land. That is not going to happen. Yet Netanyahu, when he is the president, he won't let that happen. And so we see that the handwriting is on the wall. And I'll let you scroll down and read some of the other parts of this article, but I did find out this was very interesting because it's really pointing again to that Psalm 83 war. It says the paper analyzed Netanyahu as the statesman and ruled that he was concerned about his status in Israel's history and wants to be remembered as the leader who destroyed the Iranian nuclear program and solidified Israel's nuclear monopoly in the region. And of course, they mention Iran, Iran will be involved in a war against Israel, but that war will be the Ezekiel chapter 38 and 39 war, of which Iran is going to link up with Russia, who Russia will be leading this war. So it's just it's not a coincidence that Iran is always being mentioned when they're talking about Israel. Now, Lebanon's popular as the Sarafit newspaper closed the address to the political drama from the different perspective, titled Israeli Recklessness. It's editorially explained that the news of early elections turned out to be random fraud, but has captured the attention of the entire world and became the focus of analysts and estimates that war is looming. So let me just fill you in what they're talking about here is that there was a report that came out last week that said there would be early elections, that Benjamin Netanyahu would call these early elections, and that there would be an attack on Iran in September or around about September. And I posted an article about that, saying that if it did happen around September, this is when the Feast of Trumpets would be, and one of the dates that we think that the Lord may come back would be during the Feast of Trumpets. We don't know exactly what year, but we know that since the Lord had fulfilled the first 4 Jewish feasts during his first coming, we know that he'll finish the last 3 in the fall, and the next one on the list is the Feast of Trumpets. So all of this information is very interesting, and again, it's pointing to the fulfillment of war, and they're talking about, this war looming. Now, let us go back and get into, there's another article, because I told you I was going to tie them in together. Now, take a look at this. You remember, again, peace and safety, the call for peace and safety, and this is why I put the guns in this peace sign here, is because there's going to be war when they're calling for peace and safety. Now, this report, the report Israel-Egypt peace agreement is dead. Now, are you getting the picture here, people? Are you understanding what's about to take place? I mean, God has given us this information, and we're seeing it. So let me go to that article for you, and you'll see that this is yesterday's report, May 9th, and it says, Egypt and Israel have ended any pretense at normalization, a report said. The Institute of National Security Studies asserted that the Egyptian cancellation of the natural gas contract marked the last element in the normalization with Israel. And of course, I've been telling you all along to watch what happens between the peace agreement that was established in 1979 by Menachem Begin and Anwar Sadat and Jimmy Carter, where Jimmy Carter got Egypt and Israel to sit down. They made a peace agreement in 1979. That peace agreement held up until a little over a year ago, when Mubarak, the president of Egypt, was cast out at the Arab uprising. And I showed you from Scripture that Egypt, because they are numbered in the Ezekiel war, that peace process would go away. And here you go, almost a year and a couple months later, what I told you came to pass, only because I know what the Bible says. Now, if you studied the Bible, and if you were in the Scriptures as many hours as I've been in the Scriptures, no doubt you also would have known what to look for in the future. God has given us wisdom in His Word, and those that read have that wisdom. And so it goes on to say, the Israeli Institute said that the Egyptian cancellation of what was the result of the Islamic pressure on the military regime, stopping the flow of the Egyptian oil, puts the last nail in the coffin of one of the only manifestations of the normalization between Israel and Egypt, and is yet additional evidence of the deterioration in the bilateral relations because of the regime's capitalization of the pressure of the masses. The report, entitled Egypt's Revocation of the Natural Gas Agreement with Israel, Strategic Implications, said, it seems that even though 35 years have passed since the peace agreement was signed, it is still viewed in Egypt as a strategic necessity rather than the basis for a peaceful relations. Authored by the strategic strategist of Samuel Evan, the report said that April 22nd decision by Egypt's state-owned gas companies to end annual, its long-term contract with Israel was certainly approved by the ruling military council, because Israel obviously knows what's going on in Egypt. They see that Egypt has been taken over by this ruling council now, this military council, and since they're ruling right now, that's who's dictating what's taking place, and so it isn't good. And so the bottom line is the peace process has fallen apart. There is no peace between these two nations now. And if you think that they're going to formulate a new peace agreement with Israel and hold it, you better read Psalm 83 again, because that's not what we see in Psalm 83. And this is why the headline that the Israel and Egypt peace agreement is dead goes hand in hand with what we see from the Paul's warning and what we see from Psalm 83. And I'm hoping that that is made very, very clear for you. Now, another nation is Syria, who was listed in the Psalm war. They are not listed, by the way, in the Ezekiel war. And I believe the reason why is because Syria will be taken out of the way before the Psalm 83 war, or before the Ezekiel war takes place. Now, in the article that you will see, I put up a nuclear blast here. Here's Damascus, and we're seeing blasts taking place today in the news. And the headline reads, "Massive suicide bombs kill 55 in Syrian capital." In this article, I won't go to it for time's sake, but this article will show you what's going on in Syria. Now, the reason why, well, let me go to it. I'll go to it for just a few moments here so that you can see this article. That what's happening in Syria now is breakdown. We see civil war between Bashar al-Assad's army, those that the people that like him, that are supporting him, are coming together against those that want to depose him, like they deposed Mubarak from Egypt. And so what the bottom line is that we're seeing a time set up in Syria, that the destruction, the bombing, what's going on, we see that nations are lining up, like here in this article, Russia and China, both supporters of Assad's embattled regime, called for a stop to the violence and urged all parties in Syria to cooperate with Annan's peace plan. And so that we have countries that are lining up, some supporting Bashar al-Assad, some not supporting Bashar al-Assad. So the end result here of all the destruction that we're seeing here will be, it's going to get a lot worse. And how it's going to get worse is, we know from the scripture that the scriptures show us that in this prophecy here from Isaiah chapter 17 verse 1, for example, it says, the burden of Damascus. Behold, Damascus is taken away from being a city, and it shall be shall a ruinous heap. So when you read the rest of Scripture that pertain to this prophecy, you will see, for example, when you go into the book of Jeremiah chapter 29, I'm going to read this for you. I didn't put it up here, but you can mark this if you're taking notes, Damascus, and you'll find it in Jeremiah chapter 49, starting with verse 24. It says, Damascus is waxed feeble and turneth herself to flee, and fear has seized on her, anguish and sorrows have taken her as a woman in travail. Now, a woman in travail, a woman in birth pains. And we've seen Jesus talk about this. We've seen Paul talk about the last days, these women in travail and birth pains. In other words, it's going to get worse. It's going to get a lot worse. In verse 25, how is the city of the praise not left the city of my joy? Therefore, verse 26, therefore her young men shall fall in her streets, and all the men of war get this, all the men of war shall be cut off in that day, saith the Lord of hosts. I will kindle a fire in the wall of Damascus, and it will consume the palaces of Benhadad. So we know that there's going to be a major fire coming down on Damascus, on the Syrian people. And could it be a nuclear blast that just destroys it, so that we see from Jeremiah's prophecy that nobody will live there? It'll be left in a ruinous heap. That is a possibility. Definitely a possibility. But again, the bottom line is Syria's problems, Syria's complex problems right now are leading down the road to that prophecy. Now, since, get this, let's put this together now. Since Syria is named in this prophecy against Israel, you see this right here, Syria, number 10. That's who it's talking about, Assyria. Since they are named in this prophecy, it's more than likely, because they are named in this prophecy, that they won't be destroyed until this battle. So there's a possibility that this may coincide with the problems that Syria is having right now, and it just could develop into coming together, counseling themselves together to take out Israel, because Syria is part of this plan, part of the people. And so it may all happen at the same time. That there is a good possibility that the Psalm 83 war, as we see here, and the peoples of this war just may all be taken out at the very same time. And again, I say this because Syria is mentioned in that Psalm 83 war. Now, talking about wars and rumors of wars, we see this by Jesus Christ in Matthew 24:6. And you shall hear wars and rumors of wars. See that you not be troubled, for these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. And so I also put up Ezekiel chapter 38, because this war hasn't taken place yet. And of course, when you're talking about Russia, which I'm going to get into, Russia is part of that major prophecy that comes from the north. The Lord tells us to come straight out of the north. And we see that Russia is in the news. And when you read this particular article, it says Putin opts out of the G8 summit, cancels meeting with Obama. And we know that, as I said before, just like the nations are setting up, coming together with Syria, we see nations coming together for this Ezekiel 38 war. That Russia will lead this war. And so we know that there's going to be opposition between the United States and Russia in the last days. And one of the reasons why I say this is because in Ezekiel chapter 38, you know, you'll see about the young lions of Tarshish that are in this area at the time this war breaks out. We believe that those young lions are the United States, Canada, and Australia. The break-off of Great Britain, who was mentioned as Tarshish in Ezekiel, that prophecy. So Great Britain being Tarshish, they will also be there. And so if the Russians come down with all their allies, including Iran, and this is why I focused some attention on Iran in that article today, that when they all come down in Israel, that the United States is in this theater and they don't do anything to help Israel. I'm just showing you how these alliances are coming together and how prophecy is coming together. And this is why I see the contention between the United States and Russia coming together. And there's some things that are obviously really concerning, and I'm going to be getting into part 2 of my video today. So I'm going to stop it right here, and please give me about 20 minutes or so to upload the new video to the YouTube channel and convert it over to my website. So, and I'll fill in the rest of this information for you in part 2 for May May the 10th of 2012. Thank you.